Let's talk about running and trail running for first responders and for tactical athletes. And we're going to answer the question, is running and trail running, is it even tactical? So back when I first started running for my job, it wasn't really about running to maintain performance or running to clear my head. It was really about making the cut. I remember the first time that I started doing runs and timing myself, they were 40-yard dashes. It was for my high school football team, and I wanted to find out if I can play certain positions. I wasn't the fastest guy, but I had to start timing myself on my 40-yard dash. So then I would qualify when we ran the 40-yard dash on our football team for some of these positions like defensive back and wide receiver. But me being the little brown kid that I was, not the fastest. And so I really had to work hard and put in the extra time, on my own outside of practices to try to make the cut for those positions. So that was really the first time that I started running for any specific reason or purpose. And then I remember when my friends and we were pushing ourselves so that we could get hired on a hotshot crew. It was a goal of ours to get on a hand crew, to get on a hotshot crew. And we started asking around on what kind of standards that they would have. And so I found out and I discovered that it should be a 6-minute mile. And if you could run a 1.5 miles in 9 minutes, that you would qualify and kind of meet the standard for any hotshot crew that you would want to get on. So that became my goal. So back then in those days, we weren't running to chase some epic trail views or posting pictures to our stories on these trail runs. We were just pushing ourselves to make sure that we could meet those minimum standards. And I remember as I was training myself for these runs, I was working at Walmart at the time. I was the shopping cart guy. So for 8 hours a day, that was my job, was to round up shopping carts. But I got a lunch break, and on my lunch break, I would time myself on these 1.5 mile runs. And it was my goal to try to make a 1.5 miles in 9 minutes. And so I was probably around 18, 19, 20 years old. So back then it wasn't a big deal for me to hit that mark. It was, could stay in shape, can keep running, but I was putting in the time on my lunch break, working at Walmart so that I can get on a crew. And then finally I did. That kind of dedication, that kind of work ethic did land me on a crew. I was able to get on a hotshot crew. Once I got on a hotshot crew, I got introduced to trail running on a regular basis, part of our organized and our group physical training, our PT. So trail running was one of the major ways that we pushed one another and that we got in shape for the fire season. And I have been doing this ever since, and I'm still making my crew members and my team members do it to this day. But is this time-honored method of training, whether it's running or trail running, is it even relevant anymore for first responders or for tactical athletes? I mean, running, it isn't even what firefighters ever typically do in the line of duty on a day-to-day basis, right? Any structural firefighter in their full turnout gear, it's not your job to show up, and you're not going to be running 1, 2, 3, 5, 7 miles in your gear. Although you do move at a very quick pace with a purpose, running's not really what we do as a firefighter. And even in my job as a wildland firefighter, although I said we do it to get in shape and we use it as part of our physical training, I can't say that as we're carrying chainsaws, wearing our packs, wearing our full gear, hiking around the mountains, that we go around just running on a regular basis. So if we don't run in the line of duty, why are we running to train for the line of duty, right? So I'm going to get into that. And I can say for law enforcement officers and for military personnel, they certainly run to move to cover and from cover. And law enforcement officers, they're going to have to sprint to chase down suspects and to, really run for their lives, right? So why does this running, why is it so sacred? Why is it so much part of the culture, as I mentioned, in the fire service? And how did it end up in our first responder training and culture to begin with? In this episode, I'm going to be diving into the origins of that legacy and why trail running and running is still thought of as one of the most powerful tools that we have for our mission readiness, for our mental toughness, and for stress management. So as we get into a little bit of the history on this, we're going to be discussing and learning about how warriors over time have used running as part of their training. Where trail running or running outdoors comes from in first responder culture, it has deep roots from the military, right? So talking about mountain warfare, and even in the early days of wildland fire crews, there was always running involved. It's always been a part of the academy training culture in any first responder kind of job, whether that's fire, police, military, and it's been especially utilized still to this day amongst wildland firefighters. As I started to mention, the history of this comes from ancient warriors, and they were working on their endurance, but it was more of a survival tactic. So the Greeks, the Romans, native warriors, the Mongols, trail movement was part of their survival as they maneuvered their troops. And we've all heard the story of the Greek soldier at Marathon, just passing the message, letting them know that they were about to be invaded by the Persians. So this whole running throughout history for soldiers, it was a necessity, right? Because if you can't maneuver, if you can't run, if you can't keep up with the opposing forces, you die. And this necessity for running to be a part of training for the military, being able to maneuver for, they didn't call it then, but they were really, right, these tactical athletes, as like we would call it that today. We like to brand everything and name everything, but just being a soldier, they would have to train to be able to be fit enough to be able to maneuver. But you can take that all the way to modern history, more modern history. So even in World War II, the 10th Mountain Division, they were really well known for their ability to maneuver in mountainous terrain, and they did a lot of trail runs, weighted packs, rucks, but maneuvering rapidly over long distances, and they did a lot of trail running. A lot of British troops did this, and then now that we're kind of more known in the military for utilizing smaller unit tactics, so special operations forces, they're in boots, they're loaded, they're traveling over rugged terrain, and it is standard operating procedure for them to have to run, ruck, maneuver with weight, and they do a lot of trail running, certainly. So in these instances, trail running is used as part of a field simulation. It's not just a workout, it's a mission tool, because if you can't run, you can't keep up, you die. So there are some tactical benefits that are understood by the military for trail running, trail maneuvering, and it builds mental grit. It teaches you navigation because you're maneuvering outdoors, you're getting orientated. It helps keep you adaptable. So you're working on your adaptability, you're regulating your pace, and you're learning how to operate under high stress. And now, how did this transition into the Wildland Fire Service, where I currently work? And like I said, it's part of our culture so deeply. Well, a lot of the military, it influenced those early hotshot crews and those early smoke jumper crews, because who led those first crews? Well, it was right after the war. All these people with the military training, as I said, they were familiar with running in formation, PT formations like they did in their boot camps, in their training, and running as part of their training. So they naturally brought that into the Wildland Fire Service. And in the Wildland Fire Service, they certainly needed to have all those same tools of adaptability to, there's a very long approaches to the places that you're going to be working, setting up spike camps. And what's most important is the work capacity, the ability to do hard work. That culture was built from moving on terrain. And I really like doing this kind of training for myself, with my team members, and for my team members, because there's really no fluff. There's no place to hide. You're fully exposed on your fitness when you're running and trail running with other people. It's obvious who's at the back and who needs to work on their fitness, and who's going to be at the front, who those leaders are, right? It's just grit, it's rugged terrain, and focus and determination. And as I said, there's no place to hide. You're fully exposed. So I've always known trail running throughout my own career. I told you I started doing it early at the beginning of my career as I was preparing, been continuously doing it in my career. And then now towards the end of my career, as I'm a lot farther along, I've been in the fire service for over 25 years. I'm realizing how much mental benefits there are for this as well. Just about any kind of physical fitness training is good, and there's huge benefits. And certainly doing cardio or running on a treadmill has health benefits, but what I'm really learning and noticing is that you have to get outside, because trail running, being in the outdoors, being exposed to the outdoor elements, whether it's extremely hot, extremely cold, it adds a layer of difficulty that really feels good when you're able to expose yourself to that and still perform, and you're kind of conquering those harder situations. But what I'm noticing about trail running is the mental benefits, that it really does provide a lot of decompression time. A lot of times you're in solitude. Even if you're running in a group, at some point you're going to spread out, get into your own pace and your own rhythm. And there's been a ton of studies that show that running in nature, it actually reduces cortisol and it enhances your natural recovery mechanisms of your body. And what I'm really noticing 25 years into my career is that running on trails and being outdoors, it really helps me to process a lot of the cumulative trauma that I've acquired over the years of shift work and working on EMS calls and the repeated exposure to the horrible EMS runs, the situations, and just the stress. Is being outdoors, it is so therapeutic for that. And the movement, it truly is movement therapy, both physically and mentally. This kind of trail work, or road work as I call it when we're running, it really helps me and my team members to manage anxiety, really staves off any kind of depression or being bummed out. And a lot of the symptoms that I really think that I would be having more symptoms of, like PTSD, being exposed to a lot of hard and difficult situations, and the trauma, as I said, we see as EMS providers and paramedics over the years. I'm kind of done with that. My cup is kind of full when it comes to that cumulative trauma. So I really enjoy those times of the solitude, just me and the trail and my pace. It really helps me to process that and deal with that. In fact, sometimes for me personally, the best debrief, it isn't just a conversation with other people. It's a quiet climb on a trail where I'm pushing myself. I'm really getting fatigued, and it's a mental push, and I'm just alone with my breath and my thoughts and that time with my creator out in the beautiful outdoor, in the wilderness, on a trail. I just love it, and it helps clear my head and keep me going, keep me motivated, and keep me dialed in to be able to do my duty. So the bottom line is, trail running is absolutely a part of first responder and fire service culture that has a built-in trail necessity. It really helps us develop the conditioning and the readiness needed for wearing packs on those steep climbs and those extended shifts. And that's why to this day, trail running by yourself or with your team, it's still used by elite Forest Service hotshot crews, or even the camp crews that I'm a part of. We definitely trail run on a regular basis. And probably another reason that it's really so ingrained in the culture and that we're still doing it so often is, even with all of the fancy training methods, and even myself, I love doing a periodized hybrid training workout program. But trail running, you don't need any equipment. You don't need any gear, and you could do it anywhere. So it really provides maximum flexibility and adaptability with minimal gear, because not every fire station, not every agency or crew that your team or that you're going to be a part of has a fully outfitted rogue kind of gym. But guess what? You got some running shoes. You're going to be running with your team, with your crew. And even as a leader, even though I don't have to run, if I really don't want to, as a crew superintendent, I can kind of pick my hikes, pick my workouts. I don't necessarily have to trail run anymore, but it is so critical as a leader. It really does keep me mentally and physically sharp, helps me to sharpen my decision-making under high physical stress and pressure, helps me to build confidence in my body's ability to move under stress. I get to work and learn about my own pacing, my ability to how hard I can push when I need to back off. And it's always super humbling. Just the other day, a couple weeks ago, I remember going on a trail run and kind of bit off a little bit more than I should have, a little bit more than I can chew. I had only been running maybe 4 or 5 miles a couple times a week. And then this run was much longer, probably about 10 miles, but it was a long trail run. Really didn't eat. I wasn't really, just kind of planning ahead, taking care of myself. But bottom line, got in over my head, broke myself off. I got sick for the rest of the day. So it is still very humbling. And, I need that a lot of times. I need that humility, and certainly runs and trail runs, they're going to give it to you. And if you take pride in being a leader and a pride in your fitness, you should definitely be able to still perform and lead your team and not be last on trail runs. Even on the crews that I still work with to this day, I really love to encourage the new guys who are typically, they should be better runners. They should be, they're brand new to the job, so they're pushing themselves really hard. I love to encourage them to beat the old guys because, I'll lean on the old guys to keep up the standard, pushing hard just as much as when they were new, but still pushing as a leader because it's hard for you to really lean on a new guy telling him he's not doing that good and he needs to step it up when he's just smoking you on the runs, right? So I always encourage the newer guys to any little win they can get, anything they can do to help establish a reputation and show that they're pushing hard and they're capable and physically able to do the hard stuff with the team. They can show that by just hammering down and blowing everybody else away on these trail runs. And now, how do I recommend that you program and use these trail runs as part of your training? And specifically the way that I train, how do trail runs fit into periodized hybrid training? Well, because periodized hybrid training is focused on a four season training program and plan throughout the year, each one of those seasons having a specific purpose, the running, it really kind of accordions or undulates based on your training goals. So if you're going to be focusing on building strength, the runs are going to be a little bit shorter because long distance runners, people that run a ton of miles on a regular basis, unless you're talking about an elite level hybrid athlete that has the availability and the ability to get adequate nutrition. A lot of the runners that you'll see, long distance runners, they don't really have a lot of muscle build. They're kind of sometimes even looking a little bit emaciated because they're just burning so many calories. If you're trying to gain muscle, you want to be backing off on how many of those just cardio calories that you're burning. So you're going to be doing shorter runs when you're focusing on strength. And when you want to go hybrid, and if you want to learn more about that, I recommend you listen to my hybrid training episode that I recently recorded for you guys. But when it's time to go a little more hybrid and you want to be not just strong, but you need to have the ability to hike and to run farther distances, you're definitely going to need to be incorporating some longer and more intense base runs. And when it comes to running, I like to mix up the pacing. So whether you're going to be mixing it up with more steep terrain, difficult terrain, long distances, short distances, I recommend to people that you have 3 different runs that you kind of hit on a regular basis. Most people will have 3 to 5 trails that they can hit. And the reason you want to keep it to that is if you're doing so many different trails and it's always random, you really can't notice any trends of how you're improving or you're getting worse or how you're feeling. So if you keep it to a routine of about 3 to 5 trails, you can time yourself and you can compare yourself to how you did the last time. You can work on different pacing and tempo. And if you live in an area where you don't have a lot of elevation change or gain, you're going to have to just find some kind of hill or slope, whether that is an overpass on the road or just a smaller hill, but you can do hill repeats or you can do pack carries. That's still going to help develop and build your tactical capacity to be able to handle some slope. And I definitely like to pair runs on strength days. I'm not afraid to do that as well. A way that we work in strength training and trail running into our daily routine is most of the time we will do about a 1 to 3 mile trail run as a warm up to get ready. And we run back to the gym at our work location, and then we're going to hit some strength training after we've already done a trail run. Or if there's days where I'm really focusing on strength and that's the priority and I want to reserve most of my focus and most of my energy for safely executing some strength lifts, I'll do the strength lifting first, and then when I'm finished, I'll go hit a trail run at a predetermined pace that I'm trying to accomplish for that week. What it really comes down to when you want to get smart about how to use your trail running as part of a periodized or a planned out or a seasonal training program is to use seasonably appropriate running blocks. So don't just trail run heavy and long all year round. You need to take a smart and a seasonable approach. Now, on your trail runs in the future, just after what we've talked about, hopefully you've learned a thing or two, or you've got some new perspective. But try to think about this. Think about how the trail running that you're doing, it actually connects us with the generations of warriors, soldiers, wildland firefighters in the past, as we're developing ourselves to be those fire line or those first responder leaders. We're building physical durability, and it provides a mental space and place for clarity, that PTSD kind of blowing off some steam. And remember, when it really comes down to it, it's not really about the numbers. It's really about how you move when it matters, that you can lead your team and you're not going to be the weak link. Leadership a lot of times happens while you're moving and on the move, on the fly. And trail running builds men who move farther and faster than those who don't. So to recap, trail running, it's going to build endurance, it's going to build resilience, a tactical mindset, and it helps process our stress. So what I'd like you to do this week, and what I'm going to do, is schedule a trail run this week with intent. Choose a route, track your distance, your elevation, and plan to repeat that same run soon and push yourself to improve. And if you want to find out if you should right now be in a long trail running building block, or if you should shift gears, take my free 1-minute PhD quiz, and it's going to let you know exactly where you should be training and focusing right now. And if you know anyone that runs for physical fitness, or that they should be, please share this with them. Drop me a quick review so I can see what content you're enjoying and help give me some ideas for future episodes. I'll catch you on the next one, and have a great day.